This is the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I will call this Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and it's Tuesday, May 16th. It is a bit after 9, and please press your roll call buttons.
Okay, we're going to have fun with the machine today. There we go. Sorry. Roll call shows 26 members present, 1 excused.
Clerk Lodewagen, has the open meeting statement been fulfilled legally?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Okay, today when we stand for the silent meditation and the pledge, please remember those brave men and women in service, protecting our freedoms, and always in the danger. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, our first action item is to approve the agenda before you.
Mr. Chairman,
Pardon me?
I
Yes.
would like to have an amendment to the agenda today. If everybody would please have resolution number 7 moved in front of number 6. And again, that's required in order to properly do the procedure here for planning and zoning purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second to that amendment? Second by Mr. Kussman. Any questions?
That's not our agenda.
Please vote.
Gary, could you vote on the amended agenda? Motion carries 26-0.
Okay, next we'll vote on the amended agenda. Need a motion, please? No, we got, yeah. There's a motion by Mr. Rowan and a second by Mr. Muck. Any questions regarding that? Please vote.
Motion carries 26-0.
In the packet.
You know you're fine.
I looked at it before. I didn't bring
It's not even on the third inning yet. Okay, now we have to approve the minutes of the April 18th meeting, 2017. There is a motion by Mr. McClone to approve the minutes, is it? Okay, is there a second by Mr. Zog? Any questions regarding the minutes approval? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion carries 26-0.
Okay, now we will take the number 7, the resolutions A. We'll ask Mr. Brown to come up here. It is the resolution number 8, 17-18, amend Chapter 45 of the General Code of Ordinances, Comprehensive Plan Map, Town of Waupaca, Plum-04-17. Mr. Brown, good morning.
Morning. So this comprehensive plan amendment is to allow for the River Hill Dental office here in the city of Waupaca to relocating to the town of Farmington. The property that they've chosen to develop is zoned and planned residential. planned. And this comprehensive plan amendment is to change the planning district from rural residential to a rural commercial mixed to allow for them to build on it.
Do we have a motion for approval? There's a motion by Mary Kay Pullman and a second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? Please vote.
Motion carries 26-0.
Apologize. The Mayo Clinic told me I'd be anesthetic would be out of me in 2 days, and it's been over a week now. Okay, we'll go into our ordinances and amendments to the General Code of Ordinance. A is amend Chapter 34, Waupaca County zoning ordinance. Listed amendments can be obtained in the county clerk's office or planning and zoning office. There's a motion for that approval. There's a motion by Mr. Zog. Do we have a second by Mr. Quisman? Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 26-0.
Item B is to amend Chapter 37, Waupaca County subdivision ordinance. Listed amendments can be obtained in county clerk's office or planning and zoning office. Do we have a motion for that approval? There is a motion by Mr. Zog for approval and a second by Mr. Handrick. Questions or discussion? Supervisor Craig.
Can you explain level 3 highways, please, Ryan?
Absolutely. So level 3 highways are town roads or other local roads. So we have level 1 roads, which are considered state roads, arterial roads, and level 2 are county highways. So level 3 are town roads. And they're also all private roads that are by E911 addressing standards, a private road and also a named road.
That answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 26-0.
No, we're still read number C, don't we? Yeah. Okay, we're now at C 2017-626, amendment to Chapter 34, petition number Z-005-17, Town of Waupaca, River Hill Dental Associates of Waupaca for a zoning map amendment from AWT district to RC-N district on approximately 3.46 acres. There's a motion by Mr. Johnson for approval. The second by Mr. Wilfer. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 26-0.
Okay, we're down to reports. We're going to have a Clerk of Circuit Court report, 2015-16 annual report by Clerk of Courts Terry Tews. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This is my 2016 annual report. Years in the past, I used to do 2 years at a time, but I'm trying to stay current and do 1 year at a time. So my actual report this year will just cover the year of 2016. So just kind of some interesting fun facts. You are not getting a paper report from me because I'm paperless. So no paper. If you want a written report, I'll be happy to prepare one, but truly, in all honesty, I've been clerk of court since January of 1999. I could talk about this office in my sleep. I've been an employee of the county since January of 1995. So I've got 22 years in, and 18 of those happen to be as the clerk of circuit court. So I know that office, unfortunately, like the back of my hand. Like I said, I sleep and dream about it. So some interesting fun facts. In the 18 years I've been there, I have seen a lot of changes. When I took over the office in January of 1999, we were just on computers since 1993. So the clerk of court's office just started a computer system in 1993. We now have advanced so far that we've gone totally opposite. Again, we no longer handle paper in our office. Everything is paperless for us. So all of our cases filed by attorneys come in electronically, and we accept those cases and we process them all as an electronic file. So nothing is processed as paper, nothing comes in the mail anymore to us. The only things that we still do take as paper is from pro se litigants. So if you yourself represent yourself in a case and you bring us paper, we still accept paper, we still scan it, but we just maintain the file as a paperless file. But attorneys now are mandated. What we did is January of 2016, we flipped the switch to do voluntary e-filing in small claims, family, and paternity. It went so very well that by June of 2016, I was talking with Diane and telling her that we were getting ready to actually go on the mandate that was coming out by the Supreme Court rule. Waupaca County was the 5th county in the state of Wisconsin to go ahead and go on to the mandated rule issued by the Supreme Court that says every county needs to be paperless by the end of 2017. So I worked with Diane in Corp Counsel. She was very helpful with the child support end of it. And by August, we were mandated. And so attorneys had to start filing no paper with us as of August. Then in October, we did voluntary e-filing with our district attorney's office in all our criminal cases. And by March of this year, when it went mandated, we then went along with the mandate with all of our criminal cases. So all of our case types are literally paperless, except for a few that the state has yet to convert, like harassment restraining orders or domestic abuse restraining orders, but all of our cases otherwise are paperless. So we went from a day when we would hand people a file, they would go through it, paperclip what they wanted copies of, and then they would tell us, we would make the copies. Now they go to a computer, they put it in a bucket, and we process it at our computer, and the copies print out. And the bucket, just like as if you're checking out at Amazon now, you check out with us. And the other nice benefit that has occurred with everything that we've advanced through is the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access, the WCCA website, which is a site that you can look up cases in Wisconsin. So it's very accessible to people. It's helpful to a lot of people who are looking to do business with someone or rent a property to someone. They can look up someone's rental history, see if they've ever been evicted. So our records are accessible online, which is a benefit to a lot of the public. So a lot of that has changed, and so it's been very interesting. Because we were one of the 5th counties to switch to electronic filing, we've hosted a lot of counties. As a matter of fact, I'm hosting another county today, Brown County. They should be here anytime soon. We've hosted up to 7 to 8 counties already coming here, just kind of viewing how we transitioned our office, because it's very difficult to work with people when you've always touched paper. You're no longer touching paper, and so you have to get everybody in the mindset of how do we still process our work? Well, you still process it the same. Everything still happens the same. The complaint comes in to us from the district attorney's office or the child support agency. You know, we still process that complaint. It goes off to the judge. We still set it for a hearing. It's just nobody's touching that paper anymore. Because of all those efficiencies that have been created, because we don't have to file as much paper anymore, in 2016, I also eliminated another position in my office. So I've been here since January of 1999. That's the 3rd position through efficiencies I have eliminated in the clerk of court's office. So even though it's a hard transition sometimes for us to move everybody forward, and we get some resistance, in the long run, it's such a huge benefit. You know, I don't do this to people to make their life miserable, even though I think Judge Kirk in his retirement speech said he's leaving because of e-filing. But I do it because of the efficiencies that we can see that happen, that we need to continue to stay forward with. And it's just been a huge benefit for my office. You know, what used to take us in the spring of the year, most electric companies and energy companies send us hundreds of small claims cases for people that didn't pay their bills in the wintertime. That used to take us days to process. I mean, it was all manual. We'd have to enter everything. It would all come in the mail. We'd have to mail it all back. What used to take us days now takes us hours. So, I mean, it's just been really a very efficient system. And we're thankful to the state for everything that they've done to it for us. So with that being said, that was one of the biggest changes that I've really seen. I have to also thank my staff because we had to prepare a lot. We had to do a lot of scanning. We had to get a lot of cases ready to go. We always have to convert cases. So I have great staff. They like to just, you know, we set a deadline. We make some policies for ourselves to where we need to be, and they all follow, and they're all happy to just, and I'll tell you, they've all been very happy with the new system. So we have no complaints there. Also in 2016, we had to start a new redaction rule. We also have some new rules with restraining orders that we had to start in 2016. And we also started collections with a new state department. It's called SDC, which we've seen some benefits from. In 2016, my office processed 346 family cases, 58 paternity cases, 343 civil cases, 889 small claims, 329 felony cases, 372 misdemeanor cases, 282 criminal traffic, 5,261 civil traffic, 1,119 forfeiture actions, and 202 juvenile ordinance citations. And I do that with 6 employees. And then we also have 3 employees that handle stuff that comes over the counters, the phones, and jury. So in 2016, we had a very quiet jury year, which was nice for us to have. We spent a total of $13,000 in 2016 on our jury trials. We had a total of 11 trial days, and we spent $13,660 for jury trial costs. Unfortunately, in 2017, we've already met that. And that's how it fluctuates from year to year. I can't tell who's going to go to a jury trial. I can't tell how many jurors the judges are going to require. But in 2016, the cost was very efficient. We've also made a lot of changes on how we handle jury trial from when I first started too. You know, we used to see a lot of jurors get wasted, and you know, a lot of people don't want to be put in a month and never used. And I hear from both sides. I hear people who come to jury that say, "Oh, Terry, I love it. Can you put me on next month?" And I'm like, "I wish I could, but I can't." And then we have a lot of people that say, "I absolutely hated the experience and I would never want to do it again." So it is an inconvenience to some people, but you have to remember that if it was you or your family member, you know, this is the Constitution of the United States. This is your right to a trial by jury. And so it's my job to make sure that we have the jurors here that will listen to the case and make a decision. So it is important for people to understand that, yep, it's a day out of your life, but you know what, for somebody else, it could be them going to jail or them being set free. So we have to do our duty in what is expected of us. So a lot of people really do like it, though, so I don't get too many complaints. We made some changes. When Judge Klessman came on, she asked if I could bring in lunch for the jurors. She felt that us sending out jurors for lunch is not fair to the people who are driving in, you know, to have to go find a place for lunch. So we do provide lunch for our jurors if they're here during the lunch hour. So that has been a change that we've made, and it hasn't been that substantial of an increase. Because I've been able to decrease our jury trial expenses for how many jurors we call in and other matters, we're able to offset the cost for lunch for these folks that we're bringing in. So it has been a nice added benefit that we do serve these people lunch. So anybody have any questions so far about jury or about the cases? Okay, so I'm going to go on to some totals that will probably be very interesting for you. In 2016, my office collected $1,410,431 in fines, fees, forfeitures, surcharges, and costs. Out of that, we sent $1,100,000 $583 to the state. 352,000 rounded up stayed with the county out of that. So it's always an interesting statistic. And unfortunately, most of the monies that we do collect goes to the state. So it's usually, I would estimate 2/3 of every fine goes on to the state for different programs and different funds. If you ever want to know the exact breakdown, I'm happy to provide that to you because I do have that information. I just, without me explaining it to each of you individually so you understand where all the money goes, I would have to give you a full day's class on it. But there are a lot of buckets that we send money to. One of them is the crime lab. There's a fee assessed on every fine for the state crime lab. So when we collect that money goes off to the state crime lab. For every drinking and driving case, we have money that goes off to the state for a program, and we have money that comes here to Waupaca County Department of Health and Human Services. As a matter of fact, in 2016, we sent $51,582 to the Department of Health and Human Services here in Waupaca County for driver improvement surcharge programs. So we have a lot of different buckets that we put money into, and the breakdown is very technical. Please remember that most of this information is set by the Department of Administration and your legislators. So, you know, we have not seen a fee increase to the county since 1988. But when there is a fee increase, it always goes to the state. So it's an interesting fact. I'm happy to share that with you also. So we do collect a lot. So you have to think of 72 counties. You know, Waupaca County alone is sending in $1 million to the state. So now you have to think of 72 counties sending in an average of $1 million or more to the state for different programs. So unfortunately, the state also has a general fund that some of the monies goes into. So where they specifically assign that money from the general fund, I don't know. But I can tell you the funds that we have to submit our money to. So we use many different programs to collect. You know, a lot of people, if it's a traffic violation, we will suspend their driving privileges until they pay. Some people, if they just don't have the money, we go ahead and do payment plan agreements. We do wage assignments. We do judgments. We do tax intercept program, and now we've started a program called the State Department of Collections. And it's basically through the Department of Revenue, and they will come in and take the money. If you have a checking account or a banking account, or if you have a business and you owe us money, they will assign themselves to your money and take it for us. So we've utilized many different programs. We continue to improve on our collections. Collections for me has been #1 since 1999. In 1999, I was the second clerk of courts to work on the TRIP program. We call it Tax Intercept now, but it's called TRIP through the Department of Revenue. And you know, the problem is when you start a new program, you have great collections in the beginning, like anything, it peaks. And then it just goes down from there. You know, we're on a list behind the Child Support Agency and some other agencies. So, you know, we submit as often as we can. We try to collect as often as we can. We stay in contact. But there's just some people that are totally uncollectible and seem to be able to just continue to violate and not have to pay. So we do the best we can. We do what we do with what we can. I think we do a great job in our collections area, considering we collect over $1.5 million. And then 350,000 stays with the county, and the rest goes on to the states. So outside of that, you know, our office stays busy. We are always happy. We're helping the public constantly. We're working with law enforcement. We do search warrants. In 2016, I have worked on a program where we are moving our judges to signing with the help of IT department, thank goodness, because I have no IT background. We have moved our judges to tablets to sign blood search warrants. So what happened in the past is an officer would get someone to the hospital. They would need a search warrant now. That was a new law change, is now you have to have a search warrant to take somebody's blood. And so the officer would have to call the judge in the middle of the night. The judge would have to call him back. The officer would have to fax something to the judge. So the judge would have to go to Clintonville PD or Waupaca PD, get the fax, review it, sign it, and send it back. we've switched them to tablets. So the officer calls the judge, the affidavit and the search warrant come in on the judge's tablet. He reviews it, he signs it, and he emails it back to the officer. And the officer then is able to stay at the hospital and get everything done. So we've worked on a lot of efficiencies. We've had a lot going on. I'm actually looking forward to maybe a slight break with not so many projects going on at once. But that's about it for the Clerk of Court's office in 2016. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Supervisor Craig?
My question is, when I go out to the WCCA, the court access, you're limited, right, as to the amount of documents that you can see.
You can't see documents.
Right.
The only thing you can see,
Is that
yep,
line that
yep.
says. So then we come to your office and then we can see the documents. So my real question is, how long with this new paperless office are you going to be keeping the records? In other words, you could throw away old paper copies from how many years ago? So what will you do with retention of records now?
Well, our retention is set by the Supreme Court rules. So our felony cases are in some instances, as you heard the sheriff talk about in the past, you know, when he's got cases where he's trying to keep evidence for 75 plus years, it's the same for my office. So if it's a felony case and it's a murder case and the person is still in prison and there's still evidence and things that can be appealed, we have to keep that file for 75 years. So, or till the life of the person who is in prison. Misdemeanors we keep for 20. Civil we have to keep for 20. Small claims is for 10. Family and paternity is 20 from after the year of judgment. Traffic is 5, thank goodness, because that's the one we have 5,000 cases to 6,000 cases a year. So it all depends. You know, I don't at this point ever foresee those documents being accessible on a public access outside of coming to the Clerk of Court's office. Those documents people have to pay for. They are a record of the court at this point. And I don't see the state moving towards the accessibility of people just being able to go out and see a document and be able to make a copy of it. You know, it's been discussed, and there's lots of things that have changed, so I can't say that it will never happen, Pat, but at this time, it is a revenue source for the Clerk of Court's office. We charge, per the statute, $1.25 a page for anything that you want to copy out of a file. So at this point, I don't foresee them changing that. So what you basically see when you go out on the WCCA website is just a short synopsis of the record. In Waupaca County, my staff types the record into the court record card, so you will see what happened in court. In some counties, they don't do that. They just say see minutes or see file. And that's really not what the intent or the purpose of the state was when they set up that WCCA website. It wasn't for people to have to see the file, because they want people to be accessible to the file without having to come and see it. So I'm always about complying. So, you know, we have a good record out there. Our office makes a great record, and it's accessible for people to see what occurred at the hearing. But in some counties, unfortunately, they don't follow that rule. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mr. Fredowitz?
Just for curiosity, you enumerated on different ways that you're able to collect money from a client. Are there any fees attached to any of those ways, approaches at all?
When we go through a collection agency, they do charge us a percentage. That's the only one that charges us a percentage, and we're actually, in all honesty, we're moving away from the collection agency. Now that the State Department of Collections has come out with their new collection service, there's no fee to me anymore. So we're moving all of our ones from the collection agency. We're in the process right now of transitioning all of our cases that are at collections through a collection agency, and we're moving them to the State Department of Collections, because there is no fee to me. The debtor has to pay the fee. So they'll charge the debtor. Once they collect from them, they'll collect my fee, plus they'll collect their fee from the debtor. So, yep, we've switched over to that service.
Terry, maybe you can answer this question for me. In reference to our junkyard ordinance, we have a person over in the township of Little Wolf that's been issued about 10 or 12 citations totaling well over $10,000, and the person has never been into court. How can we is there a way we can force them to take some action?
So have they been issued citations for a junkyard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when the citations were issued, did they also ask for restitution? Is that what you're saying? That it was a cost to the county to clean up the facility? Or?
I'm not sure of that. I'm sure Ryan could answer that.
Please use your microphone.
If you would restate the answer,
Yeah. So are we asking for restitution for the county cost? Or is it the actual fine is a couple $1,000s? The fine is a couple $1,000s? Is that what you're asking, if the fine that's assessed?
He's never appeared in court after you issued citations. I know there's a court appearance
Yeah.
date listed.
So if
on
they
it.
do a default and the court assesses the fine, let's say it's $3,000, we put, the court gives them 60 days to pay typically. And then if they don't pay at the end of 60 days, then the judges have me convert those to a civil judgment. That's how we have to collect, is through a civil judgment. So then my office converts it to a civil judgment and we submit it to Tax Intercept. And then we just send them collection notices, turn them over to SDC and collection agencies in the hopes to collect. Unfortunately, please remember, some of these people, I mean, we're dealing with some people that when you're going in, the likelihood of you seeing much of your money returned is minimal. And, in these circumstances, we have some gentlemen that I'm familiar with that have had a lot of citations, and they come in and pay $25, $50 a month. I mean, when the court reviews their financial income, the court will then assess what they feel they can afford on a monthly basis. With citations such as the junkyard, if they don't have any assets for us to attach to or anything for us to do, outside of maybe Diane reviewing it for contempt, I don't know what else is possible. I mean, we put them on everything possible once they don't pay.
Any other questions? I have a request, Terry, if you could. I know you're really busy, but could you take, please, 5 minutes and send me an email on some of the facts and figures you gave me? I am on the radio tomorrow for Waupaca County, and I haven't found any professional staff to join me yet. And I like statistics on what you all told us today, so I can repeat.
Sure. I'll give you paper.
Just appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the good job you do. Okay, next we have the June County Board meeting tour. Penny Tank from UW Extension is here to tell us what's happening.
Very quickly, and we're back to the county board tour. And this June, our extension committee expressed an interest in going to the Iola area, and so that is what we'll be focusing on. It was last in 2011 that we were in Iola, so that is one of the communities that was coming up on our rotation around the county. Last year, if you remember, we spent the day in New London. And Manawa was the year before that. So we will be going to Iola. And I have enlisted some willing volunteers to help me. Jill and Mark, our county treasurer, are helping me with this year's planning, being from the Iola area. And so we have been in contact with the chamber president and some other individuals in Iola to plan some of our stops. It will be the morning again, like in the past. So we'll get you a registration form as soon as we can, hopefully within the next week. And it'll be roughly, we usually meet around 9 o'clock and load on the bus to do some drive-by tours as well as some stops. We're working with the Millstone Restaurant. Possibly there is a boat manufacturing location in Iola. Some drive-bys with the car show grounds or the ski hill. There's a very nice historical society. So just a number of different areas that we are looking at exploring and highlighting, I think, too, is just some of the tourism parts of Iola that really do help our county in that respect, as well as things that our county departments are doing. And then we will be ending with lunch and a meeting. And it will be $10, I believe, will be the cost again this year, like the last couple of years. Are there any questions? Yes?
Penny, I was just wondering if you know where the bus will be leaving from?
Not yet. We're actually trying to confirm the best parking location, because there were a few options that we were talking about, and some of them, the parking isn't maybe the best to get a lot of cars in. So we are still working on confirming that.
Gary, I think it's north side of Clintonville.
What's there?
And we will be meeting in Iola. I just don't know the exact location. Like last year, we parked our vehicles at Crystal Falls and then came back to Crystal Falls for the meeting. So you were back at your vehicle to have the meeting and to be able to leave. So we will not be leaving from the courthouse, but we will be meeting and going around Iola, in Iola.
Question, will we be coming back to the courthouse for our meeting?
No, we'll be staying in Iola.
And where will the meeting be taking place?
We're working on that too.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's a secret right now, okay.
It's a secret, yes. No, there's a few locations, and again, we're just trying to figure out with the best transportation and access to be able to get into some of the locations. And so we have a few options that we're still trying to confirm. But it would be like, again, last year with Crystal Falls, where we had the meeting just right after the dinner, and then people would be free to leave from there.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, what's the date gonna be for that?
That's a great question. That is, the county board meeting in June is Tuesday, June 20th. So if you can just plan to keep your morning free, that would be great, and we will have a registration out very shortly.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Penny.
Sorry, I don't have more. We're very close to details, so I apologize I don't have more specifics, but we will get that out very soon.
Secrets are good for a while.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before Chuck, we are going to have you up here. We're just going to take a short break. Okay, thank you. County Board will take a short break. Okay, we'll commence the Waupaca County Board meeting. And our next agenda item is item A. It's the Waupaca County Industries Update. And Mr. Price is here from DHHS. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you didn't need to take a break because of this presentation. So.
Oh, I'm sorry for the long break. We almost have to break again to go to the restroom.
I wanted to be able to provide you all with an update on kind of where we're at with decisions with Waupaca County Industries. Our chair, Jerry Murphy, wanted me to make sure that the board understood fully kind of where we're at with the decision, how we got there. And so if you haven't been a part of any of the executive committee meetings or DHHS committee meetings or read the paper that came out recently, just wanted to go over some real quick bullet points so that you have some understanding. So if you're getting questions out in the community, kind of how did we get to where we're at and what are we doing moving forward? And so I'll try to go through this fairly quickly because I know some of you have heard this quite a few times over. So if we just look at kind of the history and mission of Waupaca County Industries, there was definitely a place and time. And so when we go back to its inception, going back probably 30-some years ago, we were probably really progressive at the time. It was a facility, a work training site, vocational rehabilitation, sheltered workshop for those that were physically and cognitively disabled in our county. And so at that time, one of the things to remember as we talk today is that at that point, the folks that were going there were our clients, our members, the folks that we served. We operated a long-term care program, and so the folks that were going there were being case managed by our staff, by the county workers. And so even at that point, we had group homes, I believe, throughout various locations in the county being operated by, again, county staff and making sure that folks were getting to where they needed to go, especially with WCI. And so when I think about mission of WCI, it was definitely put in place for a reason, and it was really so that members that were going there could get job skills, a place to go, very much a social outlet as well. But as things got good with WCI, production started to increase, and you can't necessarily turn down jobs as they're coming in, and so the production side started to really increase. But it was increasing, but not at the speed that our members could keep up with. And so at that point, production was starting to take over a lot of what was going on at WCI. And so we historically started bringing in contracted workers to help with the pace and help with the work that was coming in. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more, but just to understand, it hasn't been all member run over the course of its history. And so when I first came to Waupaca County, and trying to look at what WCI was all about, some of the first things that were starting to catch my attention, I didn't really know if it was good or bad, is on any given day we have about 12 county staff that are out at WCI. We probably have at this point about 80 members. And then when production was really, really cruising, really hot, we had on any given day about 100 contract staff working production, both at WCI, at our enclave sites of Creative Converting, Storms, and some other sites that we've developed. And so I didn't know if that was good or bad to have 12 county staff and 100 contract. That the balance didn't seem right, but still had to figure that out. So we've been trying to do that. We've had a shift in philosophy, and it's really been dictated by some of the national conversation away from a sheltered workshop. And so historically, folks would come to WCI, and in a lot of cases would end up quote unquote retiring from WCI, and so could come in right out of school and stay at WCI for 30 years doing the same work. And so the shift has been away from sheltered workshops and into community placements. And so actually I think Waupaca County Industries has been ahead of the curve, ahead of the national conversation when it comes to this piece in developing community job sites. And so we've now have a paradigm shift of about 3 or 4 years ago where WCI is really kind of a one-way street when you come in. When you come in, we're going to prepare you for community employment. And so that batch, as folks come in, they're not staying like they used to, and so you're losing a bit of the workforce, so to speak. And so we've developed about at least 72 community sites for folks to be able to go to. So just that shift. So folks aren't staying like they used to. We're making sure that they're able to go out in the community and find jobs. Probably the biggest shift, and we'll talk about this, is a shift to family care. And so I just mentioned when Waupaca County Industries first started, it was our staff, our clients. When family care came in, they've now taken over the long-term care piece of the work. And so we no longer have a long-term care unit in our department. We actually pay the state just probably in the neighborhood of about $450,000 a year to make sure that family care is supported. And so those entities are responsible for the care and well-being of the clients in those services. And the last thing that I'll just mention on this slide is that WCI is probably at this point the largest non-mandated service that we operate, and so we are now a service provider to the managed care organizations, but it's a non-mandated service, so I just want to make sure we know that piece. The financial health, just historically, I think Waupaca County Industries has been a healthy organization, although when we go back, it's kind of unclear, going back probably more than 4 years ago, to document exactly where that might give us some real clear documentation on if it was or wasn't. It was definitely supporting some other parts of the department, but we're unable to really track where it was going. And so really it's been about 4 solid years, maybe even longer. I think Heidi can attest to some of those early conversations and findings. 4 solid years of cleaning up the fiscal process. And then one of the things, as we got a better handle on the fiscal picture, one of the real red flags that really had us dive in was in 2015, we had one of our highest production years ever at WCI. And so we were going around to our different sites and kind of singing those praises of the high production. And so had high production, then as we start to see numbers towards the end of the year creeping into the red, that doesn't make any sense when you have high production, low revenue. And so that really had us digging in to figure out what was going on. And so if you have high production, remember what I was saying before, it's not necessarily on the backs of the members that we're serving. We're not increasing the work there. We had to increase our contract staff. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more. So as the production goes up, we're increasing production contract staff, and so that comes at a cost. And one of the things, too, we've probably not done the upgrades that we need to WCI at this point, both ones that are needed, ones that are recommended off of audits. We've come into a new era of a lot of different audits that hit WCI. For those of you who may not know, we do drink sticks, oatmeal packaging, those types of things, which all fall under the Food and Drug Administration. And now there's, over the course of the last couple of years, has fallen into Homeland Security issues. And so the security at WCI needs to be increased, because we're a contract, I guess we'd be considered a subcontract of Storm Foods. And so they're under a lot of audits for food safety. We fall under that same umbrella because we're handling the food. And so we haven't upgraded the security measures, and so that will continue to kind of ding us when it comes to audits and things along those lines, amongst other things that need to be upgraded within the building. And so knowing that we have to find some way of sustaining our financial health, what we've come to find out is we're not in control of any of the critical elements when it comes to fiscal sustainability. So we have a few pillars that we have to rely on, our main things, and these are the pieces that are not in our control. And so family care, like I mentioned, is our main referral source. We provide the service, they pay us the rate that we provide. They've not been willing to increase those rates, and so if we talk about, and I'll talk about here at the end as well, but if we needed to pay our contract staff more, or even our own staff more, that has to be an increase to the rates back to the folks that are paying us. And so at this point, the family care agencies have been saying, we're not going to increase your rates. So that hampers us, and we're not in control of that piece. The external production contracts, so the relationships that we have with Storms and Creative Converting, while we have a really great relationship, you have to understand that it's still a business. And so if we can't keep up with production and we can't help meet benchmarks that they have, that could change. And so even with Creative Converting over the last year and a half or so, we've lost a line of production at Creative because our rates got a bit too expensive and we aren't able to continue to fill the line. And so those are things that are still out there. So I think that that's a fragile conversation all the time. Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR, is one of our referral sources as well. And they're really being affected by the national conversation, in that we used to have a bit of a flow of referrals that as children were coming out of school, coming out of high school, it would be a referral into WCI. That has changed, and the direction from DVR has been that there won't be referrals to WCI out of that. It would be right into community jobs, which so you'll see a lot more activity going on within the schools and high schools about training, so that once kids come out of high school are able to go right into community jobs. That hampers us in terms of at least one of our referral tracks not coming into WCI. And then our staffing agencies, we currently use both DEN services and IQ services to help staff. We're only able to give a certain rate for those folks coming in. And so we're able to pay just over, I think, $9 an hour for our production staff. When you can basically go across the street to Storm Foods and provide just about the same job, but depending on the shift, at about $3 to $4 more an hour. So we're competing for a pool of workers that can go elsewhere and find it at a larger sense. And so, like I said, if we wanted to increase those rates, we'd have to increase our rates back to the referral sources like family care, and that's just not happening. And then, like I had mentioned, the national conversation and future direction is away from center-based facilities like WCI and more community-based. And so our ability to be adaptable and flexible is really going to be key in the coming future. And a somewhat joke of kind of the speed of county. I don't know that we're going to be able to be adaptable like we're going to need to be as these new kind of directions come down from the federal level. And so I'll just mention again, just the mission revisited is that WCI was set up to be member focused, and it was great at the time and place. Somewhere along the way, I think production became the focus, to nobody's fault. I mean, you have to take the job when it's coming in, and it seemed to be helping us grow. But at this point, if we go back, if we look at when Family Care took over, that's when the business model shifted. That's when the landscape shifted for us. Lots of things got taken out of our control. And so at this point, member speed is not fast enough to meet production demand, and as we increase production, bringing in contract workers is not working out on a fiscal level. And again, I'll just mention that lots of conversation, and to our committee's credit, the number one thing that's always been at the forefront of our conversations is what about the members? What's going to happen if WCI were not to be in operation? We have to keep reminding ourselves, even though it's still a bit of an emotional conversation, that the folks being served out there are not our members like we were in the past, that Family Care is there. We continue to pay the state for Family Care to be able to provide for folks in the community. And again, the referrals are not coming in like they used to. So about a year ago, we had met with the executive committee and our board as well, and at that point we had three options that we were considering. One was kind of the status quo. As I've talked, and I didn't mention this earlier, the financial picture is that the trajectory has been trending to the negative. At the start of this year, we were anticipating about $100,000 in the red. We've made some adjustments. We continue not to fill positions, not to upgrade equipment, those types of things. And at this point, I think we've had probably between contract and county staff, 14 positions not filled, including the coordinator position. And so we're really at a shoestring at best, and it's not sustainable. And so if we're looking to increase any of those things, it would come back towards tax levy being able to support that. And so that was one of the options, stay status quo, and knowing that that's the way we're trending, and and really with all those factors that we're not in control of, how do we have any kind of fiscal responsibility to that? One of the pieces would be, and something that we haven't really considered seriously, but really the reality of really sell the building and the property. That's really not something that I think our committee was in favor of at all, but has to be on the table to let folks know that that is one of the options. One of the options, the last option that we were exploring, was to sell the business. So essentially RFP, saying, does anybody want to do this? And so those were the options that we went forward with about a year ago. Started running into some barriers around that number 3 option. And as we talked to more folks, we were able to come up with a fourth option. And this is the one we discussed a lot more detail with the executive committee and our committee just within the last couple of weeks. Is really, like I've been mentioning, we're a service provider back to the MCOs. And so kind of how it fits in my head is, if we think about if I'm a maintenance man for Dwayne and I'm doing services to his home or his property, and now I'm telling Dwayne, here's how much I need to be able to do these repairs, and Dwayne's saying that's too much, I'm not going to pay that, and then I'm saying, well, then I can't do it. I'm not going to go find Dwayne another maintenance guy at a lower rate. And so at this point, it's really about the MCOs finding the service provider that they need for the services to continue. And so having the MCOs RFP for the service that they need, so that the service can stay, that folks can continue to use the building or the resources as they know it, that would be what this option would come out to be. And so the ask was to have the authority not to reply to the RFP. And so the county would step back, allow another service provider to come in and provide that service. The service stays, different provider. And so just some of the details that we would need to continue to work out on that would be, we'd need to work on a chosen provider on the property, but I think, our focus has been service first, and we'll figure out the details after that. We want to make sure services stay. Otherwise, folks would be in a position where they'd be having to travel to Appleton or Green Bay or Stevens Point for the variety of these services that they can get right here in their community. We'd have to work with the MCOs on a transition plan. For sure, meetings with staff, family, close stakeholders along those lines so that they know what's going on. And then obviously a plan for our county staff that are still out there. And those will all be things that we continue to work on and have conversations with our committee as well. So that brings us to our action, which we, again, I've mentioned a joint meeting of the executive and DHHS committees on April 24th. That meeting, the decision was sent back to the DHHS committee. which on last Wednesday, or after about an hour's worth of further conversation, we were authorized to not reply to an RFP for services currently be provided at Waupaca County Industries. Those timelines are to be determined. We're budgeted for WCI through the end of the year, and so until a transition could occur, it would be operations as is. As far as the RFP process, that's really the MCO's timeline and how they would want that up and running. From a business standpoint, I would think that they would want that to happen sooner than later. And so they've already had ideas about expanding services. If you didn't already know, our hours at WCI forever have not included Fridays, so we're closed on Fridays, no weekend hours. They're already talking about the ability to be able to expand and open up hours on Fridays and Saturdays. And so I think in some ways we may have been a bit of a barrier in terms of progress and being able to expand things. And I'm hopeful that we can get a service in here that perhaps could be even more available to folks. And so with this option, if the RFP goes through and we get another service provider in, service stays, folks can continue to get their services right here in their community. It would just be county staff out of the mix. And so I appreciate the executive committee's decision and our committee's kind of thoughtfulness as we've gone through this. It's been a lot of conversation, few years of conversation and updates, and so I'm feeling comfortable with the decision at this point that a service is going to be able to stay in the area for folks to be able to take advantage of. So I don't know if there's any questions, but that's where we're at.
Mr. Murphy, Gerald Murphy.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to, for the people in the room that are hearing this presentation, I just want to bring them up to date that this has not been a hasty decision. As Chuck mentioned, when he came on board and started looking at the operation of the Health and Human Service Department, he noticed some things that, as he said, was a red flag. Shannon later on, when she came on board, concurred with Chuck on this and started bringing to our committee of jurisdiction reports and observations. And for perhaps the last 2 years, the committee of jurisdiction has on a monthly basis been brought up to speed on what their findings have been month by month and also what the options are. It has not been an easy decision that we came to. When you have just like Lakeview Manor, been around for a long time, and it's going to upset some people in the community until they understand it, because I fully agree with Chuck that there will be service provided, but it's a change. And we took all of that into consideration, but we realized that we could not go on the same path indefinitely. It was unsustainable. And so this is our recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Supervisor Boyer?
Yes, Chuck, were the members or their families advised of this before the newspaper article came out?
We've only really had conversations with our staff at this point, and so we've talked about, we've had ongoing conversations out at WCI about where we're at and what we're trying to do to keep the services there. But I'd say that we haven't had a pointed conversation just with families and or our stakeholders at this point.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Chuck, for the update. Very good. One of the fun things about being your county board chair is addressing the public about county government, which long ago when I was a part of the WCA family in Madison, we felt that not enough people know about county government. It's the best kept secret, unfortunately, of all governments. Everybody knows about their city council, it seems, and or think they know what's going on. We do know about what's happening in the state, and certainly nationally, it's almost sickening how much we know or what they're saying. However, county government is really the right-hand man of the hand of the federal and state government. But to just mention, attend meetings, Rotary and so on, and talk about county government, plus the fact they have questions about their county government, Waupaca County, which we're also very proud of, and we think we do a good job running it. And I have nothing but always a positive message about Waupaca County government, as I will on the radio every month. In fact, we've got some great comments. After I received a call from Gresham, maybe I said this 6 months ago, and the guy said, I'm not from Waupaca County, but enjoy listening to the Waupaca County radio because your message is positive. Some counties get on here, namely a neighboring county, and they're nothing but bickering and arguing and talking and badly about a department head. And I know Jerry very well. He's a class man, and unfortunately he got caught up in an argument with a sheriff a couple years ago, and it made headlines in the paper, and it was on the radio. It's unfortunate. Jerry Erdman is a good man. He's a good county board chair. Sometimes he has some, he's not as lucky as we are here having a group of supervisors as we do. He doesn't have that. So what I'm getting at is every year we have a student government day with a Waupaca County high school students. And I think there are about 130 that come here. The American Legion, VFW, put it on. And it's just a fun day that they spend at the courthouse, and I address them in the morning, and this group. And I only know to get into county government about life, the hills and valleys, the persistence, the attitude, what we have to have in tough times, and it's really fun. And these kids, high school kids, are so, what should I say, respectful, nice. They listen. Nobody's goofing off. Every year I can say that. Get a bunch of high school kids, and I almost feared they were dressed well. And when I told them that you are our leaders, I'm really proud of all of you. Now, this year I addressed the fact it was last Friday, 6 groups of 8th graders in Waupaca County, and there were about 25 in each group, took turns downstairs of addressing each group. I was a little leery about 8th graders, but by gosh, I was proud of them too. They sat there. I told them, make sure you sit up in the front row like you do in church, and they all laughed, and my gosh, they did fill up the front row. But we had a little humor together, and they really seemed to enjoy listening for 25 minutes. Now, you know, we had a priest, Father Everts was his name in Clintonville, and he once told me, Dick, if you ever get up and talk, no more than 8 minutes, that's it. Don't talk more than 8 minutes, as his homilies were 8 minutes or less. Then last summer, our retired priest, Father Malarkey, stood before us. He said, 5 minutes for this homily, and that's it. You got things to do in the summer, no more than 5 minutes. And he gave a homily about the Bible's message or the gospel that day. Well, I was happy. And talking 25 minutes to these 8th graders, I couldn't believe I wasn't done talking and 25 minutes were up yet. It's fun to talk about something you think you know about, and when you have a good audience. Those 8th graders, I'll tell you, they even had some questions. And a couple of them came up after and shook hands with me, and thank you, really is interesting. 8th graders, I just renewed my faith. I received 2 thank you notes from these 8th grade group already in the mail, and their little handwriting. Thank you so much, Mr. Keppen. I just couldn't believe it. I will also respond to them and thank them for being the great kids they were that day. Those are the fun things when you see students like that. We hear about the bad students. The bad students, the naughty boys, is such a small percentage, but they get all the headlines as we see in the papers. A lot of great kids. I don't want to make this a personal thing, but this is a general, just a general message for we men. We're all about some of the same age. And Mark O'Connell at the, when I'm at a board meeting down there, he used to have me address the whole group of we older men about this problem, just for the experience. Well, you know that I told you last meeting that after my visit at the clinic in Rochester that my cancer was back and it was hot. And they were waiting for this specialist that was over in Europe spreading the good gospel of the Mayo Clinic get back, and they scheduled his to do my situation on May 4th. His name was Dr. Morris. So he spent about a half an hour with Nancy and I explaining just what he's going to do with this cancerous tumor. Now this is also a part of the prostate problem, cancer that I had way back in 2011. Because your cancer comes back, it's prostate cancer no matter where it is. And they show you on a choline scan of all the patients he has, some of these cancer cells end up on your brain, that's prostate cancer, ends up all over your body. He said, you're so lucky it ended up in your spine and T3. So initially they used radiation to get rid of it. 3 years later, it was fired up again, or 4 years later. So now they turned me over to Dr. Morse, and he said, we can do chemo, which I don't like. It makes you sick. Chemo doesn't kill all the cancer cells anyway. He says, we're going to do a radiofrequency microwave tumor ablation. What it is, it's kind of like a small cremation. We're going to go in and put 4 incisions in your back, small incisions. We're going to go in there with high-powered electrical probes at a high temperature to burn this cancerous tumor. And he said, I've done over hundreds of them. They work well. I also can do it freezing. I can freeze it, thaw it, freeze it, thaw it, freeze it, thaw it, and that's another way. But you were going to burn it. So and it took 3.5 hours. I went into the surgical room, and they're watching on a screen where these probes are going. The problem is it's close to the spinal cord. So they had to shoot a dye up into my spine so you can see that the needles are not getting too close to the spinal cord, because that's not good, of course. And it took us 3.5 hour procedure. I woke up from anesthetic about 6:30 that night at St. Mary's Hospital. By the way, they have 55 operating rooms in the hospital. Nancy didn't even come up and see me because you're going to get lost. It's that simple. I called her once I woke up, and she was wondering if I had too many Manhattans because I wasn't making sense. But anyhow, she said the doctor had called her and said everything went well. And so through the night, they monitored me every half hour, came in and took all your vitals, checked for bleeding on those incisions, helped you to the bathroom, and so on. 9 o'clock in the morning, Dr. Morris comes in. He's a baseball fan that I loved. He's a Boston Red Sox fan, said he was going to the Red Sox-Twins game later in the day. And we talked about that, and he checked me over. He said, well, you can call Nancy and tell her to come and pick you up because you're ready to go. Wow. He said, don't drive because you're full of anesthetic now for a while. We shoved a lot of that into your system. So by, I think, 10 o'clock, we're on our way back to Clintonville with Nancy driving, and I was back in my office in Clintonville at 3:30 in the afternoon. Nancy and I went to dinner at a supper club in Clintonville at 5:15 after that amazing thing of going through this ablation, tumor ablation. Now, to just shorten this up a bit, the doctor says, you know, we'll be checking you in a few months. If it would come back, we'll do it again, because radiation we can't do again. It just crumbles your bones. That's one good thing about this method. We can do it again. And, you know, I also received a email on my Facebook from a furniture director friend of mine in Clintonville. And he said, I hope you're doing well, Dick. And I said, yeah, I had a form of cremation here at the Mayo, but actually I think you do a more complete job. He didn't actually think that was so funny, but anyhow, that's how that worked. Pain, yes. They just called me last week when I, in fact, was leaving the courthouse, asking if I can do everything I want to do, work, whatever. And I said, yes, I'm doing everything I can. I took no high-powered pain drugs, just Tylenol. He switched me to ibuprofen, better for pain. And he said, what is their pain like? I said, any of you that played baseball, it feels like I was hitting with a fastball right between the shoulder blades. And that's happened before. And the only thing is, the pain went away and I got first base. But this, he said, is going to last about three weeks. Just normal, because it's a little shock to your body and it's high temperatures back there. and it hasn't bothered me a bit. I still can work 10, 12 hours a day. So with that being said, I emailed last night some of my friends about Dr. Kwan as my original doctor. I shouldn't give advertising here, but I'm going to. Kwon. Go on Dr. Kwan Mayo site, and he's got a number of lectures about just what I went through and their choline scan, which is only at the Mayo Clinic. It attaches to every cell, cancer cell. And listen to his lectures. He's an Asian. He's actually from Korea. But if you don't find it, go on YouTube, Dr. Kwan, Mayo Clinic, and you'll see a number of lectures by him. I have somebody in the room here that told me that he listened to it last night. Some of them are rather long, very informative, and tells you about prostate cancer. And even though it comes back, cancer comes back, it's always prostate cancer. You can have a PSA of small, 2.0, which is small, and you still got cancer growing in you. And only the choline scan will show you that. The quicker they can catch that, the better. So that's enough of that. That's just good information. Anybody who wants more information, please feel free to talk to me, email me, whatever. But I know that's a long drive out there, 4 hours and something, and I was there for 3 days, yes, but I always felt it was well worth it, because I'm still standing here yet after having prostate cancer in 2011, and it's a constant fight, as we know. And all of you, as I look around here, most of you have health challenges. Some of you are quiet about it. I respect that. I'm not quiet about it because I want you to know so you don't have to ask me or wonder. I went to a funeral the other day, and a good friend of mine said, "Oh, Dick, I'm so sorry. You're back on chemo again." I said, "I was never on chemo. Never." "Where'd you get that from?" "Oh," he says, "I don't know. I heard you're in tough shape." And no, I'm fine, But that's how rumors go, but I like to set it straight. But I look around the room, I know all of you have some concerns in health, and that's normal for our age. And you ladies, make sure you tell your man about this too, because it's just as important. And I'm almost done. Now that since I've had it, my son, who's a Delta pilot, and he's 48, has to get checked every year because cancer is hereditary, and especially prostate cancer. My son in Minnesota is 52, and he just went through a complete checkup for cancer. So that's how it is, kind of a hereditary thing as life. So thank you for your attention. If you got any questions, make sure you ask me. Okay, announcements and correspondence. I hope you all enjoyed your roles. Anything else, Clerk Jill?
Nope, everything else is in your packet.
Okay, then I guess we're looking for a motion for adjournment. Motion by Mr. Sorensen, a second by Mr. Jonley. Please vote.
Motion carries 26.